It is now.
All right. So, does this work like you ask me questions?
That's the general gist of it. What have you been working on?
I'm working on like a novel.
A non-novel.
A novel, a writing piece.
Yeah.
It's less of a novel, more of just a story for ideas that I've had, because like I want to.
And what's the general idea, premise of it?
Essentially, it's taken in like a sort of sci-fi world where it's a foreign planet, and there's a society and stuff fighting against like aliens because war and shit, but there are no adults in this society. Everyone is under the age of 18. So it's sort of just a thing of what I'd imagine it'd be like if there were just kids running a society. Which I imagine, since for fictional purposes, I have sort of like, I wouldn't say cop outs, but really more like I don't explain how a lot of things in the society work, because I imagine in real life if it was just kids, there would not be a very stable.
It's going to be like 20 minutes. Everyone's just going to be wandering around, stoned out of their gourd, doing God knows what.
Exactly. Like
no one can drive. We're all terrible at driving.
Exactly. There would be fucking cars piled up for blocks on end. It would suck. Like, as much as you think about it, like, parents are stupid, I would love to, like, be by myself. You really wouldn't, though.
Who the hell says that? The only person who says that is incredibly short-sighted.
Right, exactly. Like, as much as for some time, if you're upset, and you would say, like, God, I hate my parents, I wish they didn't exist. If they didn't exist, and if no one's parents existed, it would be pretty shitty to live in a place where you didn't have any adults.
Well, it's worse the prospect of dying at 18. You don't really get any time to learn shit.
That's another thing.
Like, no one has any sort of core competency or career. Like, yeah, I'm a farmer. I'll be dead in 2 years.
Pretty much.
I just hit puberty. Now I can actually till the fields.
Yeah, it's a concept that I thought would be neat to play with without going too much into depth of how everything works.
Yeah, so it's sort of one of those, like, old, who was the name of the guy who wrote the book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? It's just sort of a sci-fi novella type thing.
I don't know that book, or story, or whatever it is. I've actually haven't heard
the premise for the movie Blade Runner.
Have
you seen that movie?
No.
You're missing out. It is fucking fantastic.
I should watch it, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that, yes, people sort of scold you if you haven't watched it. It's like if you say, yeah, I haven't actually seen the original Star Wars, people get all shitty and douchey. Yeah. Except in the case of Star Wars, those movies, they weren't that good.
I know. Honestly, like, everyone hypes up all of Star Wars movies. Like, the universe is great. The whole story behind everything is great. And probably the Clone Wars TV series that I watched, like, when I was younger.
Yeah, well,
it was fucking fantastic.
It was genuinely a terrific series.
It was absolutely great. But the movies themselves, like, I think they're a little bit overhyped, right? Like,
they really are.
I mean, they have a good story, and it's quite impressive for what they had. Just a bunch of shitty old props and, like, cameras and stuff. But yeah. In my opinion, they're way overhyped.
There's a lot of things that people just look past because it's Star Wars. Like, come on, this was bad even for the time.
Right.
That Alec Guinness sword fight with Darth Vader, like, oh god, it's like watching some old codger play shuffleboard. Like, just go ahead and die already.
It was quite a shitty fight. I think the only, like, good fights in the series were in the second two movies, but the original Star Wars movie, like, they're really lucky that people enjoyed it.
It was a low standard for films at the time, because the special effects in that movie, even for the time, weren't that great.
Yeah.
Alien came out 2 years later, and the CGI and practical effects, not CGI, they didn't have CGI at the time because it was the 70s.
Right.
They were still good for the time.
Yeah.
Star Wars just doesn't hold up.
Yeah, like, it doesn't, it's not...
Those fucking bears. Bullshit. Ewoks. Just a bunch of midgets in bear suits.
It's just overhyped. It's good, but it's not as good as people remember it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was terrific at the time, but there were movies back then that still hold up, like the aforementioned Alien. Star Wars doesn't.
Exactly, right. So it's a cool concept and a good universe, but the way they carried it out back earlier is a lot overhyped.
Yeah, this most recent Star Wars sucked a bag of dicks. Did you see it?
I went to it
without expectations. I went to the show and said, this is not a Star Wars movie. This is an action movie with plot holes, but I don't care and I'm going to enjoy it. And I enjoyed it. And it was great. Because I heard bad things about it, so I was like, let's not look at it.
It was so fucking long.
It was long, and there were a lot of dragged out parts.
Like that bullshit casino plan and their dumbass horses. The first thing that happens if you're going to stampede through a casino plan with horses, you're just going to get gunned down.
Essentially.
They're just going to waste those stupid dogs.
It was really... I want to use a lighter term than stupid, but I can't think of a lighter term than stupid to use for that scene. It was not a good...
I feel like part of it is the villains, you know? Like, Darth Vader is badass. That dude did not fuck around. No. Snoke is an old codger who got cut in half.
Yeah.
Friggin', like, Ginger McNazi Man. What was his name? Not Krennic. The ginger.
Yeah.
I could kick his ass.
Yeah.
I'm 16. I could beat the shit out of him.
He's a
Kylo Ren is a sad little manlet. Give me a pool cue, and I'll beat the shit out of him. Scrawny little bitch.
The villains were shit. Darth Maul was a badass. Star Wars has had a bad problem with killing off good villains way too early, or making their villains hella shitty. Like, Count Dooku was pathetic. Like,
that's such a stupid fucking name.
Yeah, I know. Count Dooku was pathetic. Darth Sidious was a good villain and very intelligent and very smart, but he was absolutely shit in terms of how much action they gave him. Like, all they did is...
He didn't do anything.
Exactly.
Like, it's not even like there's, sort of the Game of Thrones political intrigue type thing. It's just, you see him sit in a chair, it's like, seemingly this all just fell into place without him having to do anything.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid.
That one badass fight he had there against Maul and his...
I love that so
That was so fucking
much.
cool.
It was so good.
Darth Maul's red, his brother's yellow, and the other guy's white. It's mustard, ketchup, and mayo fighting.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like fucking Battle of the Hot Dog toppings. But that whole series of episodes, for anyone...
It was so good.
It was so good. The fight with Pre Vizsla was actually like that fucking guy with the black katana or whatever, that fight, like, it was a good fight, and then finally, like, he kills him, he just cuts his head off and takes sword.
That was badass.
It was so good.
I heard this terrific joke, which is about how in the prequel movies, Anakin Skywalker's a complete pansy ass.
Yeah.
And I think somebody, what did they say? And then Darth Vader wears the yellow black suit. It's like, on the exterior, you're a tough black guy who nobody wants to screw with, but you're a weak, wimpy white guy on the inside. You're not a Lord of the Sith. You're Drake.
Oh, holy fucking! That's a good one. That's a good one, and it's a good relevant joke. Big fan. Yes. My brother decided that it would be a good idea to kick me off the Xbox. He's younger than me, but I was being nice, right? And make us watch the second movie in the prequels.
Oh, fuck.
Together.
Does he not know it's bad?
I don't think so. It's been a little while since I've seen those movies, and I watched it with him. It was just fucking boring. It was just boring. Like, even the action scenes, I was distracted and on my phone. It was just not at all exciting. And
there was nothing about it that was even remotely interesting.
It was boring.
Jango Fett, that fucking prick. What a pansy ass.
It was so stupid. They introduce him and kill him off same movie.
He's not even cool.
I know.
Boba Fett is bad fucking
overrated villain in anything.
Oh, come on, he's badass. I mean... Do you count the extended universe? Because if you don't, he is a bitch.
I haven't actually looked into Boba Fett's stories in the extended universe. I've only known him from the movies because he's been sort of in the background.
Pre Vizsla would kick the shit out of both of them.
Pre Vizsla is the badass man.
He's a stupid edgelord, but he just takes it to 11. He sells it, you know?
He fucking cranks the notch up. I'm a Mandalorian, I will fuck you up. Like, cranks the notch to maximum overdrive.
And you have fucking Boba Fett, and he got his ass kicked by a blind man.
Yeah, it was kind of...
Han Solo's just going around, like, with his dumbass red cane. He's all blind and shit.
Yeah.
Hits him in the back. Pulls a jihadi John and blows up.
Pretty much. It was pretty stupid way to kill off such a beloved Star Wars character. And it was same movie, stupid death. Like, well, technically they did introduce him in the 5th movie, but I don't count that because there was nothing that made him.
What the fuck did he do?
He didn't do anything.
He just kind of looked cool.
That's basically all he did.
It's the same thing as I mean, this is not the first time this happened in a Star Wars movie. Fucking Captain Phasma, that bitch in the silver armor.
That was so stupid.
She looks badass.
They have a bad habit of introducing cool villains, but not wanting to ruin the fact that they look cool by killing them off and making them have brief scenes of excitement and then killing them off ridiculously stupidly just to preserve the integrity of the character, which in turn ruins the character. Darth Maul, badass motherfucker, 2 lightsaber scenes, one of which is probably the greatest Star Wars lightsaber fight in the entire movie series.
Mm-hmm.
In the first episode with Duel the Fates. Oh, and the soundtrack. John Williams is a musical genius.
He's fucking great. That entire soundtrack is downright terrific.
He's actually a legend. We don't give John Williams enough credit. Every good movie that's ever had good music has been worked on by John Williams.
Other than that or Hans Zimmer. Like, if there's a badass cinematic soundtrack, basically an orchestral type thing, it's either John Williams or Hans Zimmer. It's one of the two.
But as I was saying about the characters of Star Wars, the villains, introduce them, make them look badass, give them a couple high impact, high action scenes, and then kill them off stupidly to make the heroes look good or whatever. Like
Darth Maul, fucking Count. Dipshit.
I'm glad they brought Count Dooku back. Not Count Dooku. Count Dooku was a shit villain. Yeah, I'm glad they brought him back.
Goddamn prick.
And they brought him back right. They brought him back with absolute vengeance. And
they sort of remained true to his character, because from the word go, it was obvious that he was a brute.
Absolutely.
He just sort of killed shit because he liked killing shit and because he thought it was fun.
Yeah, exactly. And then adding the brother aspect where it shows how actually powerful he is, where he can submit like a massive monster like fucking Savage Opress, and this just bring him to
this roided out freak.
Exactly, like the fact that they could bring him to a difference in power level. I want to talk about the scene in Star Wars: The Clone Wars that I watched recently because I remember it was so fucking good, where they're getting all the fucking criminal clans together.
Yeah.
Right?
And he throws that fuck.
He has a double-bladed lightsaber, right?
And he just chucks the...
Yeah. They're sitting at a long table with one guy at the end, and they all stand up. They're just like, I don't think you know who you're messing with. We won't join you, and you can't threaten us. And Darth Maul's just like, fuck it, very well. Go ahead, brother. And then he opens his double-bladed lightsaber and throws it the length of the table, and all their heads get cut off, and it's like, holy fuck, oh my god.
He just takes shit from no one.
Yeah,
those were both great characters.
They were amazing. They killed off Savage, and they only reveal what happens to Darth Maul in the shitty series,
god, that show is so shit.
I saw the first couple episodes, and then just kind of took snippets from different news sources, like, Ahsoka Tano, cool. Like, recognizes that Darth Maul is actually Anakin Skywalker.
What the fuck is with those lightsabers? It sounds like a nitpick, but the lightsabers in that, they're conspicuously thin. It's like a pepperoni stick on a sword, little bitch lightsabers. Yeah. It's like those fencing swords.
It's such a stupid show. Like, I watched the first couple episodes, like, this is not Star Wars. This is not Star Wars. It's a shitty team of rogue aspect with a Star Wars skin slapped on it. This is not Star Wars.
They aren't even cool. The characters are so fucking dumb. Chopper is a goddamn Roomba.
What? Yeah.
Zeb, that dumbass cat bitch.
He's the closest thing to Chewbacca, and they just didn't do it right.
Chewbacca was lovable, and it's clear that he's just the muscle. Zeb is a dumb brute, but he's not like Jane or something from Firefly. I don't know if you've ever seen that show.
I haven't seen that, no.
Where there's actual character to him. The gist of his character is, I'm a damn brute with a pseudo-Australian accent.
And somebody killed my family and shit on a planet, so I'm gonna kill them. Yeah.
Fuckers knocking on the wall.
It's really... The whole entirety of the show is so stupid. Like, the appeal of the Republic army is the clone troopers look badass, and they were fighting battle droids who could be modified with essentially anything. Like, you saw a shit ton of different kinds of droids. Those were really cool.
I appreciated the fact that they gave the clones character, like that Domino squad, where when they mention the clones, there's a specific squad of clones that go through the entire movie with Anakin and all end up dying by the end of it. Like, these aren't just random clones like a fucking Tiger Boy or some dumbass World War II nickname. These are actual characters that they gave some sort of person.
And they developed them. They're not just a nameless, faceless army of the Republic. They're actual characters, actual people, like hearts and minds. And it's cool, but also like it hits you with the reality of war.
Yeah, it does, and it's kind of it really is a series. It's kind of like Band of Brothers, if it were Star Wars.
Yeah, it's not like this is the end goal of the war. This is what happened after the war and what happened in between wasn't important. They go and look at it, all the events that happened, everything, and it really hits you with how pointless everything that happened is.
Or how prolonged this struggle was, because I don't like the fact that basically you have episode 1. So basically you have the dumbass fight with those stupid fucking Jamaicans, Gungans.
Right, it's...
those frog people douchebags. You have those people fight against the shitty CGI battle droids. The war really kicks it into gear during the second movie, and then it's over by the third movie.
Yeah. The Clone Wars was, like, they did a massive time jump from the second to the third movie.
They did. Mm-hmm.
The third movie, it was alright. I enjoyed it.
There were good parts and there were bad parts to it, for every fucking really... That sword fight at the end was kind of cool, but it went on forever.
It was... I actually really enjoyed that. I'm not ashamed to say that it was a really cool scene, and I really enjoyed it.
It becomes obvious at a certain point that it's just ridiculously choreographed, or when they're swinging on those fucking ropes.
Oh, it absolutely is, but it's quite entertaining. Mm-hmm. If you look at it like, this is a movie, this isn't supposed to be realistic, and then if you look at it from a perspective like that, it's very entertaining. And
it's got a shitty ending, though. I have the high ground.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm gonna jump and do some fucking Cirque du Soleil. Why didn't he just jump 2 feet adjacent to him?
Or like they did in the How It Should Have Ended parody, he starts forcing like lava out of the river onto the thing and says, now you got the lava ground now. And it's like, stop it. Like he just starts forcing lava onto it instead of doing like, you underestimate my power, does a bunch of shitty flips and gets his fucking limbs cut off.
Why didn't he just kill him?
Yeah, it was so stupid. Like,
put him down, damn it! Put the fucker down.
Like, if you in the end had to fight your old and best friend to the death, and then you don't even end up killing him and leave him to suffer and die,
you're a shitty.
It was so shitty. They just made that stupid decision with that stupid ending just so they could say, hey, Darth Vader was hideously disfigured and destroyed, but they still wanted to maintain the fact that he regretted he didn't want to do that. But if he
it was established beforehand that he was hideously deformed. The idea previously is that he fell somehow into the lava and sort of created like a bubble around him, but still got horribly burnt. That was what it was before those movies came out. Now it's... oh no, I got him a limbs chopped off. How is it he didn't get cut?
Can we talk about the scene about the birth of Darth Vader when he finally gets together? He just destroys everything. It was cool until he says, no! And it's like, oh, you ruined it. It was gonna be cool. And you fucking ruined it. The movie adaptation of Darth Vader in Rogue One, a Star Wars
that was a badass scene where he's just cutting.
You just see, and you just hear
his badass. You hear him breathing. You see the lightsaber.
Yeah, the lightsaber opens, and then
how effortlessly he cuts through.
Like it's like walking through fucking wheat. It's walking through fucking wheat with 2 razor sharp machetes. He's just cutting through everything without a second thought.
And it definitely helps to establish the difference, just to show off how much of a punk bitch Kylo Ren is.
He blocks a fucking laser beam with his hand. He blocks, Kylo Ren was like, oh, the Force keeps it frozen there. Darth Vader just sticks his hand out, it hits it, and he forces God to the ceiling and just cuts him in half and drops him. Like, you could see the fear in those I
love how tense it was. Like, you know that it's just they're crawling across the finish line. It's like, we have a head start, but he's fucking fast.
Like, open the fucking door, it's basically, we know we're going to die, but we're just going to try and prolong the inevitable long enough so that the plan can continue.
That was a great fucking movie.
I loved Rogue One.
I like the fact that they were able to get just a cutaway line of dialogue, which is like, yeah, a fuck ton of people died to get these Star Wars plans, or, getting these plans sure was a bitch, and they make memorable characters, genuinely good characters.
And then they kill them off in a good and satisfying way after giving them good character.
I'm glad that it didn't feel like it was... There's a lot of characters where I seriously question why haven't they been killed off, like Poe Dameron, after he was interrogated by Kylo Ren. He should have just summarily executed him.
That would have been,
That would have made more sense.
Anytime
they have a hostage, you'd think that it would make more sense just to get the information you can than off them.
Yeah, but they don't do that. And they ended every single character. They developed every single character in Rogue One perfectly, and then ended them perfectly. They developed the creator of the Death Star as someone with delusions of grandeur, which were then stripped away from him by the Empire, and he's royally upset. And then Darth Vader just puts him in his place by fucking
he's like, fuck off, you're a cog in this machine.
You are a cog in this machine. The end goal is bigger than you will ever be, and you will never see your moment of glory. And then, ironically, the thing that he's so proud of ends up killing him and defeating him in the end. And the things they worked so hard to defeat, the heroes, the things they worked so hard to destroy and defeat, getting the plans to the Death Star, it ends up destroying them so that they can see it, or they don't even get to see the end goal of their plan, and
they're just sort of left hoping that they do something good, hoping that what they did succeed.
And it's a lot more satisfying because you know what they did. Like, you know it happened, and you know that they got the Death Star plans, but seeing the process of what happened, it's just so satisfying to just see how much effort it took to get to the point where Luke Skywalker pressed a stupid button to blow up that giant death machine.
I also like the fact that it solved up the plot hole of, like, why the fuck is there a vent there?
Yeah.
And it made sense. It was like, it was the vent there because the guy who put it there wanted it there. It was intentional. He hated the... There's one funny thing I found out, which was just sort of this meme on the internet, which is about how the Empire really has no compunctions about being evil because they call their evil laser the Death Star.
Yeah.
It's not like they call it the planet survival weapon or the peacekeeper.
Yeah.
No, it's the Death Star. It blows you up. It'll kill you.
Pretty much. It's if you look at it from if it was meant to be realistic, they would reinforce the idea that they are good and everyone is happy and good in this world, and they wouldn't make some shit called the Death Star, Star Destroyers, fucking Stormtroopers or some shit.
Yeah.
They purposely make it one-sided to be like, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, and they make it black and white.
I still like that there was a bit of a gray area, what with Cassian. I think he wanted to kill Galen, because they figured he's working on it, even if he isn't doing it of his own volition. They were gonna kill him.
Yeah.
Cassian just decided not to, and they pretty much succeeded anyway, what with the bombing of the base.
Right.
And how there's one guy giving him the information, he can't get out, he's a liability, Cassian kills him.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, that's okay.
Well, they established to give them character, too. Like, K2SO is this sort of snarky robot that's been reprogrammed but has a good relationship with Cassian. Donnie Yen's character, the old blind man with a stick, he's kind of interesting in that he's very clearly capable of using the Force, but he's not a Jedi.
Yeah, I love the idea of Force users who aren't on one side.
Or how he treats it like a religion.
Yeah.
How it's not the Force and fucking telekinesis, bitch, I can sense things.
Yeah.
It's a religion to him, and his death was pretty badass when he's going like the Force, blah, blah, blah.
Force. Yeah. Okay, I want to tell a kind of funny story about that. Just like a couple days after Rogue One, I think like a day after I saw it, I was playing a video game called Rainbow Six Siege, and it's very realistic, very fast deaths and everything. So it was down to my friend. He was the only one alive. We were playing rank, by the way, which if you don't know, you get a rank or whatever.
It's a very tense game.
Yes, it's a very tense game. Like normally Siege can be casual and funny, but in ranked everyone's super serious. And this one guy, he's alive playing a not very high tier character, and his gun doesn't even have a sight on it, like it's just basic ass iron sights. And he's there in the room capturing the objective, and he's just outside waiting for all three of them to get into the room, and he just starts going, I'm one with the Force is with me, I'm one with the Force, and he runs into the room and gun downs all three of the people and wins the fucking round. Everyone's dead except for him, and we're all just spectating. I was like, fucking Ryland, we're gonna lose, god damn it, because he's not known for being very good at the game. And he just runs in there, fucking kamikaze, and holds down the trigger, and kills every single one of the people in the room, and all while chanting, I'm one with the Force and the Force with me, and it was so funny.
People on that door seem to be telling us to shut up.
Well, they can fucking deal with it. I don't care. Anywho,
tough shit, bitch.
Yeah,
this is where you record things.
Pretty much, and it was quite funny. I just thought it was such a funny thing that he. Anyway,
so fucking delete that bit of audio.
Oh, God damn it.
And that's at the 25. Okay, 25 minute. Just figuring out what the audio was.
Right. So back to Star Wars though. As I was saying before, we got hella
sidetracked with Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah, and everything. All the characters that they introduce, they introduced Jango Fett, and he had a couple. I wouldn't even call them good scenes, just interesting scenes where they decided to throw in some action. Like the scene where he's fighting Obi-Wan Kenobi and escaping the planet. Like that wasn't even
kind
good.
It really wasn't. It was really boring, and you get the distinct impression that the little Boba bitch should have just gotten in the plane and killed him with the big ass laser cannons.
Yeah, it was.
He's a Jedi. He's not invulnerable.
It wasn't a very good scene. And then later, it was his ship doing all the work when they were flying through the asteroid field. Like, how do you have the it was?
It wasn't even a good dogfight, really.
It wasn't even a dogfight. It's I'm gonna drop this thing that I conveniently have to blow up asteroids, and you're gonna probably die when you crash. I have the Force, bitch. I can fly well.
Absurd CGI, shitty asteroids. I fucking hated how much CGI they used in that movie.
It was stupid. And then another good character example of who they introduced, made to feel like okay.
Almost all the characters in the new Star Wars movies. Kylo Ren is a punk bitch, not Krennic. I keep forgetting the Ginger's name.
Yeah, Ginger Hitler or whatever. He.
Rey is a fucking Mary Sue, basically. And the actress Daisy Ridley, she's a shitty actress. She really is. She had this clip where she said, I think the term, she's British, I think the term Mary Sue is in and of itself a very sexist term, because there's no male equivalent. And then somebody just adds in the audio, it's called a Gary Stew, you dumb bitch.
Oh, jeez. One thing I will say about the new movie, though, the scene with all those royal guards.
That was a good scene.
That was so good.
It was a great scene, but I just can't get over the fact that they established previously that Ren wasn't very good at fighting. Rey isn't very good at fighting either. She's had no formal training whatsoever. Kylo Ren at least had a little. These are the Praetorian Guards who are established to be badass.
That's why
they got cut to pieces.
I didn't look at it as a Star Wars movie. I didn't expect it to make sense. I just enjoyed it for what it was, a shitty action movie with plot holes that's enjoyable for a little bit. And that's what allowed me to like the 8th Star Wars movie to an extent. Can we talk about the stupid fucking milk scene where Luke Skywalker melts?
Oh god, that's disgusting. First of all, that is not pasteurized. You're gonna get fucking AIDS from that.
What was the point of that scene? It was so stupid.
Just to see Luke like a complete punk bitch.
Yeah.
That's sort of Luke's character. Like, and I can understand the concept of him being like, this is over, this is done. But he's such a pansy.
It's
Rey kicked his ass, which is fucking dumb.
And then another thing that, oh my good Christ, another thing that I saw, I was watching like some
WrestleMania.
I was watching some like videos on it, like a review or something, and he said it was a force projection that fought Kylo Ren. That was really stupid. And then it cuts back to the scene of him sitting on the rock, and he's like,
I do think that it was okay the way they did the force projection thing, because if you look, there's sort of a scene where they both rear back, and you can see his foot drag along the dirt, and usually it leaves like a red trail print. Right. That end scene is very pretty just because of how the battlefield arena thing was constructed. And then there isn't one for Luke's, but the fact that it was a projection, could it not have been Luke?
My issue...
He got the fucking X-Wing out of the dirt, shows up, and maybe he kicks Kylo Ren's ass.
Right. My issue wasn't at all that it was like the projection wasn't plausible in any means.
He died like a bitch.
No. Yeah, my issue was, if he's going to die anyway, why don't they just let him die in a moment of action?
Yeah, like he died doing this stupid fucking force projection, just sitting there. Like, Obi-Wan resigned himself to his fate. He could have put up a better fight, but he knew that he knew it was his time to die, ostensibly.
And he knew...
And he was okay with that. Luke Skywalker looks like he's taking a shit after eating too much Chipotle, and just all cross-legged, like...
And then it just disappears into a fucking pile of cloth.
Yeah, all that's left is a fucking pillowcase.
What's the point of bringing a force projection what's the point of sending a force projection instead of yourself if you're gonna die anyway?
Yeah, he could have lifted the X-Wing out of the water, because he's like fucking Dagobah in episode 5. Fly over there. He's got fucking light speed. It's not that far, I think.
Right.
I don't know, maybe it is. It's light speed. They can travel at any speed they want.
One thing I did like about that scene, though, is all those vehicles just shooting at him, and there's just a cloud of red dust, and then it all settles, and he's standing there, and he just...
See, that would have been so much more badass if he had just been physically there.
If he had just been physically there, and then you see...
My also curiosity is, how did he die? Like, did he overstress his body?
I think that
He's Luke Skywalker. He's the most badass Jedi to have ever lived.
I think that's what they were going for when they did that, but it was just not good. I still think it would have been badass, though, if they just shot and then you just see, like, the bit of sort of, like, and then you see, like, one last shot hit and there's sort of a ripple on a bubble around Luke Skywalker and then it clears and he, like, brushes himself off. That would have been a lot cooler because it would have been even more cool if he was physically there. And then if he did the same as Obi-Wan Kenobi and just resigned himself after, like putting up a good fight or whatever, dodging and shit, and then, like, maybe somehow doing something to Kylo Ren, like giving him another one of the injuries.
Stabbing him in the dick hole.
Yeah, something like that. Or like if you were just to give him like sort of a cut on the side.
Cut his balls off, assuming he had any.
Exactly. Like, put up at least a fight, giving the rebels enough time to escape. What a bullshit way of finding an exit, following a little creature with natural instincts.
Like, what if it was just... I feel like there's a director's cut where it's just... They, where do those critters go? And it's just a bunch of them in a corner huddling together for warmth. One of them is fucking one of the other ones.
Yeah, like, that would have...
Because you're like, clink, 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 clink. And instead of doing a doggy style in the corner, it's like, we're gonna die.
And then maybe they saw something. Like,
I also don't like the fact that the purple-haired bitch, she accelerates to light speed, it's all badass, cuts through the entire fleet. How come they haven't been doing that for a long time?
Yeah, it was...
I feel like all it requires is one ship with a bunch of, like, used mattresses or something just taped to the outside. Do that, and it's like the scatter shotgun from Roadhog, or from Overwatch that Roadhog uses. Yeah, just do that!
It's just... you cut through everything. One scene that I thought was kind of stupid, though, was when, like, the really old woman Leia was floating through space and then forced herself back into a ship through an airlock door or whatever. Like,
that was fucking dumb. It would have been a great opportunity to just have her killed off, like, because I don't know what they're gonna do now. I figured she was gonna die in this movie.
Me too.
And that maybe this series would be the end of the Skywalker lineage, because ostensibly it's he and Leia and Kylo Ren.
To an extent, because Kylo Ren's, like, half Skywalker.
Yeah, his last name's Solo, but still, I feel like it would have been a good opportunity to kill them off. But I'm also curious what they're going to do in the 9th episode, just on account of the fact that Carrie Fisher's dead.
Yeah, and also, I don't really see any way to progress the story. The entirety, almost the entirety of the Rebel fleet is destroyed. They have almost little to zero resources.
And if you think about it, it's really just, they finished where they started.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the entire fleet's destroyed. There's maybe a couple dozen rebels. The only ship they have is the Millennium Falcon.
There's not even They have a weird sort of characters. There's no Han Solo-esque character who reluctantly fights for them. There's Finn, who realized in the first movie that it's important to fight for something bigger than him, and now is undying, fucking.
And he tried to run away like a bitch in the beginning of the first movie
Right.
and ends up shacking up with that chubby Asian.
That
Rose. Probably shouldn't be throwing stones on account of the fact that I look like Jabba the Hutt, but
that was such a stupid scene. She risked her own life to save Finn, which would have if
first of all, odds are they would have both crashed and died.
Right.
Like, don't worry, I'll save you. It's like if you're in front of a pickup truck, and in order to get you out of the way, I shoot you with a cannon.
Yeah,
it's like, don't worry, I'll save you. Shoot you with a fucking cannon. Like, yeah, I pushed him out of the way.
But also now he's got splintered bones.
You can just see his entrails. He's like crawling away on his hands, like.
Like, don't
you
worry.
dumb bitch.
Yeah, like, don't worry, you didn't get hit by the truck, but you're also, like, fucking shot in half. And another thing about, like,
but
not only...
No, they're sort of finishing where they started. Started out, the First Order is chasing them in a sort of act of recompense and revenge for them destroying Starkiller Base. So the First Order's chasing them. Now, the First Order is still chasing them because they destroyed their fleet.
And they're just weaker.
And they're now weaker. They've basically just... Like, it's supposed to be the second trilogy... The second chapter is supposed to be like a rising action type thing. Sort of that peak and valley in storytelling. This is just... Let's break all the shit. Like, this story would be okay if it were a final installment, but it's not.
Essentially what they did is just downsized both armies.
Pretty much.
Yeah, they killed off the leader of one of them. They killed off a major fighting force for they killed off the leader of the leader.
Well, they also only have Ginger and Manlet.
Yeah, they only have Ginger Nazi and the new person who's in charge, Kylo Ren,
who's clearly an idiot,
an emotional little bitch who knows nothing of fucking fighting and war tactics or anything, but is too prideful to let Ginger Nazi take over.
It was clear that Snoke had something going on upstairs,
and then he just got fucked by an emotional little bitch who was trying to save someone that he barely knew.
Yeah, he wanted to fuck her.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's probably the gist of it.
Honestly, just horrible.
Like, don't worry, I can help you come to the light side of the face. Sit on your force. Sit on your force face. It's really hot in here.
Pretty much, yeah.
She only becomes dedicated to saving him after she sees him with his shirt off.
Basically.
and then another, like... And then they killed off Luke, which was a major fighting force, but they also killed off the entirety of the rest of their army.
There's like 24 of them now.
So there's like 25 rebels, including the Jedi and the Force-sensitive fucking princess, and then a really good pilot, and... That's
it, they've got a pilot,
and
who doesn't even have an X-Wing, I think.
And an ex-Stormtrooper, and the Millennium Falcon. That's all they have. And then the other side...
They don't even have a ship for him to pilot.
Has a very Force-sensitive, but also really bitchy...
What is she going to do? Fight him with her lightsaber cane?
No, I'm saying... And then, so the Rebels have their very small group of people who are quite strong. And then there's the First Order, which has no giant fucking planet laser thing. No giant fleet.
I don't get why they didn't just chase. I mean, he arrived in that ship, that weird dumbass one with the wings that's kind of like in a Y formation, and then it comes up. It's like the Imperial fighter or whatever it is, except, kind of lame.
Right. Actually, I think it's cooler than the Imperial Shuttle. The Imperial Shuttle was weird and white, but now this one's like black and it's doing...
I like the color change, but just that fucking wing thing is dumb.
Yeah, like still give it the sort of triangle shape. But just make it like different.
A lot of the Star Wars ships seem like they wouldn't fly.
Yeah.
The Millennium Falcon is a giant saucer.
Yeah.
The fucking X-Wing has 4 wings for some reason.
Honestly, I say get Dave Filoni and those other people on board to make another series like the Clone Wars, but just make it like the golden age of Star Wars was the Clone Wars.
That was probably the best Star Wars, some of the best Star Wars content there is.
There is a huge war going on between two sides. There are heroes on both sides. They each have their opinion. overshadowed by one person puppeting both sides, and one person puppeting both sides, and their entire war is so futile, and there's stuff going on in the galaxy. You get a sense of how big the galaxy is, and then with the new movies, there's just like, oh, the whole galaxy, like they're not under the. What is the fucking?
Plus, they never explained the rebellion beat the Empire.
The First Order.
How come it's gone back to the First Order being the Empire?
The First Order is a glorified terrorist group.
Basically, it's like if there's an alternate universe where ISIS beats the United States.
That's basically what it is. And then with the original one, there was good and bad, black and white, one person on the good side, two people on the bad side controlling everything. Against all odds, they were able to beat it. Created a nice, good story with minimal effort on the movies. With some sort of, you get some sort of.
That's the thing. I feel like it was a pretty.
You get some sort of sense of scale on what the thing is. The other side is, again, just stupid, glorified terrorists who are able to beat the main government and are now going after a small group of people who are fighting against that. And in between, there was a massive galactic conflict with heroes on both sides, you could connect to the characters on both sides. They were well-developed characters. You got a sense of how grand the Jedi were, and you got a sense of how clever and outsmarted and played they were by the Sith and the Separatists.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell that bigger than both sides with the government, the Separatists, the clone troopers, the Jedi, and the stormtroopers and all the clone troopers and all the allied systems of battle droids and stuff, there was just Emperor Palpatine sitting there being like, I control all of you and you don't even know it. I've played you for fuckers and you don't.
That's the funny thing is Emperor Palpatine really did establish himself as the most powerful person in the entire universe.
Absolutely.
He's got the Separatists, no matter what the Republic does, there's always the Separatists. It's the opposite driving force. Not in this world, because he controls them too.
Pretty much. It's quite...
So, you mentioned terrorism, and this is sort of tied into what I wanted to talk about, because I feel like talking about Star Wars for an hour is boring as shit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fun to do, but...
It is, but also it's not great to listen to you.
What are your thoughts on the Trump administration?
I realize there are a lot of people who disagree with him, who I'm close to, but there are also a lot of people who do agree with him to an extent that I'm close to. I'm friends with people on both sides, and I don't bother to inform myself enough. I just, essentially, my source of news is the Philip DeFranco show, and I hear, he said or did something stupid. Oh, well, that's the only thing that's newsworthy.
It's not even newsworthy to a certain extent, because he's just done it so many times. It's like, Trump says something dumb? Yeah, and bears shit in the woods.
Pretty much. I don't bother to inform myself on stuff that he's actually doing or changing in the country, other than, hey, we're not going to allow immigrants in here. I don't know enough about the political situation in the United States to make an educated opinion. Because if I were to make an opinion right now, Trump bad feminism, Trump bad feminism good. If I were to say something like that, I just sound ignorant and stupid. And I'm acknowledging the fact that I don't know enough about this topic to make an educated system. But I would say that I think he's better than Hillary Clinton to an extent. He had a better plan than Hillary Clinton, but he's a worse person than... that's debatable.
Yeah, the thing about Trump is he's very slimy, but in a direct sort of way.
Yeah.
It's clear that he's a complete douche. I'm pretty confident that he definitely, maybe not raped anyone, but he undoubtedly got handsy with more than a few people. But Clinton, she's a lying cow. She really is. I friggin' hate her.
Like I said, I don't bother to keep myself informed on the election. I didn't keep myself informed on the election, or I don't keep myself informed on the way the United States is running, because I'm living here. We have our own. We don't really have too many issues here in Canada. We just get to laugh at the United States until he starts a war with North Korea, and we get dragged in by default because we're friends or whatever.
Yeah, basically.
So I'm not informed enough on the subject to make an educated opinion on the Trump administration.
How often do you think you argue with people about it? Because I end up arguing with my mom in particular, and I'm curious if you do the same thing with your mother. Just arguing in favor of someone who I don't even like that much all the damn time.
I keep my opinion. I'm sort of I'm not a very vocal person with my opinions. I'll keep them to myself when someone is saying something, and they'll say something stupid, and I'll just be like, well, that's them being stupid, and if the other person is stupid, they'll believe them, and they'll go on with their stupid opinions that ultimately mean nothing because two people aren't going to change an entire fucking government.
Yeah, see, my general thought is that I know I'm not going to change my mom's opinions because that's what I argue with most of the time. I argue with my sister a lot. Like the last podcast I did, I made fun of Samoans for being fat. It was like one gag, and they are fat. It's like the most obese place on the planet. That's not sarcasm. It has astonishingly high rates of obesity. My sister's, oh my god, this is super racist and offensive. It's like, well, it's a joke.
It's part of their... As long as the joke doesn't have any motivation.
It's all about motivation. My motivation is I want to make people laugh.
There's context.
I shit on white people all the time.
Yeah, you can make fun of people. I make fun of I'm not proud to say this, but I have on more than one occasion said like a hard R N-word or whatever just to get a couple cheap laughs. I don't give a fuck.
Oh god, I was just reminding me of one time I said that to my brother.
Like, people need to realize that as long as you're not purposely, as long as you're not hurting someone, or you're not purposely attacking people or something, and you don't actually have an agenda against them, you can say whatever you want. It's not a big deal. It really shouldn't be a big deal if you say something like, "Oh, that person's fat, Lamau." Like if you try and if you make fun of people or a certain group of people just for a few cheap laughs and their feelings get hurt. Oh well. We had a really big debate about that bill that's trying to change
Bill C-16.
Yeah,
or is it C-20? C-16, I think, is the bill.
Whatever it is it's trying to make it so purposely misgendering someone counts as a hate crime. And my bottom line opinion on that is hurt feelings heal, permanent records don't.
That is a very good point, because, I mean, realistically, the thing about purposely misgendering people is there are people who just they think that they acknowledge the existence of trans people, because I feel like it's undeniable at this point that there are people who believe that physically they were born in the wrong body. I mean, there was a trans soldier in the Roman military millennia ago.
Yeah.
And they choose to call them, like, say, they want to be viewed as female, but they're biologically male. They got a Y chromosome. There are people who will call them male. It's not spite.
Yeah.
It's not spite. It's their belief on the subject. They're not personal animosity. And I feel like people are taking it too personally and acting as though it's a slight against them and not a difference in political beliefs.
You don't have to hate someone who does something that you don't quite agree with. I have friends who are have different political views than me. I can't care fucking less. I don't give a shit on your political views if I like you and see you as a friend, and as long as our political views don't have to intertwine at all. I'll for the most part, I'll just dodge political questions if it's ever brought up. But people on both sides say things that make sense.
Yeah, they do. I mean,
some people are ridiculously liberal and just way too fucking politically correct. And then there are a bunch of butthurt fucking panty-twisted feminists who think anything said out of a human mouth that isn't perfectly tailored to somebody and not giving broad and general statements is ridiculously offensive and they should be burned at the stake. And then there's the inbred fucking chew on grass all day so that your entire body and diet is made up of grass, as well as genes from your family, are just like fucking hungover and insulting faggots and gay people.
They're new words like soy boys and cucks. They call everyone a cuck.
Just something like all the stupid stuff. The way I see it, work together to make it so that people don't hate other people as long as what you're doing isn't hurting anyone else, then you should be allowed to do it.
I feel like that's the golden standard. It's sort of a libertarian look at it, but it's live your life how you want to live it, just don't interfere with anybody else's.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
My problem with a lot of conservatives, I don't like the dishonesty amongst conservatives that they say they're for small government, but then they'll do things like illegalize marijuana. The war on drugs is just
absolutely stupid.
No person who believes they're in favor of small government is against drugs. You can be against drugs, but you should be pro-legalization. Or abortion, where they say you can't get an abortion, which you can argue whether or not that falls under the umbrella of small government, but drugs is definitely, adults should be allowed to make that decision.
My opinion on abortion, if we want to talk about it, because I kind of want to give my opinion. A fetus is not a person. That's my opinion. If you do not want to have a child, then you should have the option to not want to raise a child for like a fee of money. You can have an abortion if you want to. It's your body. It's your choice. I don't give a fuck, and no one else should. You're not murdering babies with a stick. You're preventing another human being from being
existing in the first place. It's like saying that using a condom is murder.
Basically.
Yeah, my general thought is that no human being has the right to use that of another person. So, like, say, I'm B negative, that's my blood type. If I'm bleeding out and there's another person who's B negative and they say, fuck off, I don't want to give you blood, this is my blood, bitch, and the alternative is me bleeding to death, I can't force them to do that.
Yeah. It's absolutely a dick move to not save someone who is dying out, but that's ultimately their choice, and I'm going to die out because I did something that was stupid, and I got myself into this situation. I can't force someone else to help me and save me, but it's the right thing to do, and they shouldn't be an asshole about it, but you can be an asshole if you want to be an asshole. Just make sure you're not hurting someone
I feel
else.
like people get this notion that people who are pro-choice are pro-abortion. It's not like they're going around with a shop vac, suck them out, kill them all.
Basically, it's like, if you would like to have an abortion, you can, but we shouldn't limit the amount, like...
Yeah, like if you want to buy a handle of liquor and drink yourself to death, you can. This is a free country. You shouldn't, but you can.
It's up to... As long as you are responsible for yourself and no one else.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
That's what it boils down to. And we can, like, you have custody over children, so technically it's different with kids, because they shouldn't be allowed to do certain things, like, absolutely shouldn't be able to do drugs or alcohol until your brain's fully developed, like,
yeah.
You shouldn't
I mean, that's the reason we don't let kids sign any sort of contractual agreement.
Because they're too young and their brains haven't fully developed for them to, like, physically do that. That's why the age of consent is so high, because you physically can't give consent, because even if they do, kids are like...
It's like your understanding of the situation is not you... It's like signing a contract when you haven't even read the thing.
Absolutely. It's... Wait until your brains are fully developed before you go into things that can change your life.
Yeah, that's the general thing. Plus, my sort of thought on abortion is if the mother is considering having an abortion, realistically that kid's going to grow up unloved and unwanted. If you look at Romania, abortion was illegal for an incredibly long period of time, and I think it might have been during the 70s or 90s. People were just like, countless women are dying of back alley abortions because as opposed to going to a doctor, they're going to Steve, the medical school dropout with a box cutter who's going to cut the kid out with a rusty medicine saw. So they made it legal, and the number of abortions went up drastically, because you legalize it, it goes up drastically. However, you had less rates of childhood physical assault, so like any sort of child abuse, any sort of sexual abuse, abandonment. The number of kids going into foster care went down drastically. Rates of fetal alcohol syndrome or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder went down drastically. They all went down because these kids aren't going to get good lives if mom's considering putting an end to them before they're even born.
Right. Like, if you don't want a kid, you shouldn't have a kid, so that, like, if you don't want the thing that's inside you to come out, then you should be able to get rid of it while it's still inside you before it comes out and suffers through a life of, like, just shittiness because someone didn't want you, but the government said, no, you can't get rid of it before it's fully developed, so you're basically damning it to a shitty life.
That's the thing. People always bring up adoption. None of these people have adopted a kid with special needs. You should not be able to bring that up until you've adopted a fucking kid with special needs or something.
Yeah.
Because it is incredibly difficult. you also have to consider a lot of people only want kids of a certain ethnicity. So if it's two white parents, they might want a white baby. They usually only want newborns. It's very uncommon to see people adopt kids when they're older than that.
Right.
They likely might even want a specific gender for the kid. They might want a kid who's all there mentally. And all these things just keep going down. It's not like it's abortion or adoption. Those aren't the options. Realistically, it's going to be abortion or years and years in foster care. And then the cycle just sort of flips over and repeats itself.
Basically. It's just such a stupid thing. Another thing that I wanted to touch on before we were talking about how kids shouldn't be allowed legally to make life-changing decisions before their brain has been fully developed. Another thing about that, though, is people tend to see it that way, but then also write off anything they say as pure just something stupid that they said as kids. Kids' opinions should be respected, but they shouldn't legally be allowed to.
I mean, they should be taken as seriously as anyone else's.
Absolutely.
There are kids with, just because your brain isn't fully developed, that's like saying that your opinions don't matter if you're an idiot.
Right.
Your opinions and who you vote for, because I feel like you should be able to vote at a certain age, because if we let Joe Blow, the alcoholic who drinks a case of Miller Lite once a week and lives off of chewing tobacco and Funyuns, if we let him vote, then why shouldn't kids also be allowed to vote?
Exactly. And something about another thing. I actually read this idea. Well, it was less of an idea, but more of a sort of joke where someone said you should have to take a test before you're allowed to vote, just so that you don't vote for something stupid that you don't actually agree on. And then they had the other characters saying that's extremely elitist and stupid, and then they were like, that's extremely elitist and you can't do that. And then he was just like, did you know that 1 in 3 Americans don't know every single it was some fact
every single state or
something like that. It was something that's saying 1 in 3 Americans don't know what they're voting for, something like that, saying that a lot of people don't.
No one really knows what they're voting for.
Exactly. So what you essentially, I'm just saying, you should be informed before you make a vote. You should be informed on what you're voting for before you make said vote.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the general idea is that we hope you're informed, you should be informed, but even if you aren't, you're still allowed to.
Yeah.
It's like if you want to ride a motorcycle, we really hope you wear that protective gear shit so you don't fall off, and it's like using a cheese grater as a slip and slide.
Right.
But you might not, but at the end of the day, the decision is still yours to make.
Right.
Call it a show.
No, I just wanted to say, another thing, the voting system, it's so retarded. 1 person equals 1 vote, because then your voice actually matters and your opinion is heard, instead of, hey, I vote for this, but since the majority of my sort of grouping said no
There's
to
a
that,
pretty
then
good, I think this is a pretty good image. It's of a congressional district in the United States, DO. Yeah.
It was somewhere in Wisconsin? No. What's the? There was. I saw the story like that on Philip the Franklin Show.
Yeah, it was a congressional district. Here it is. This is what it looks like. If you look on the right, it looks like Daffy Duck kicking Donald.
Yeah, it really does.
Or Donald kicking Daffy, vice versa. Because it is absurd that this is a congressional district of this one here.
Can I see?
It looks like a raptor.
Yeah, it's
any sort of congressional district. Like, I get that basically the idea is to squish down the amount of people voting, because it's very difficult if you have a country like the United States where there's 300 million people. It can be difficult to get all those votes, but some of it is just absurd, especially when you consider countries with smaller or larger populations. Your vote counts more or less. So in Wisconsin, 1 vote in Wisconsin, it's Wyoming. 1 vote in Wyoming is 18 votes in California.
Wow, it's so imbalanced. It's quite just such a stupid thing, and that's why there should be no bias between where you live and where your voices, how your voices are. It should just be 1 person, 1 vote, which is hard to do, but also I think it's worth it so that your country doesn't fucking die because some people.
Part of the reason that Trump got elected is because he got most of the votes in those very small states where it's like, because some of those states have a population of a few 100,000.
Right.
At the most. So basically one vote counts for like a dozen of another person's vote. He won a lot of those states, so even though Clinton got more votes individually, because she went for larger states like New York and California, more densely populated ones, and Washington.
Right.
So physically she got more, but Trump covered more ground, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's kind of absurd, because I feel like the general principle is if more people vote for you, then you win.
Yeah. That's what a vote is. Another thing, actually, I think we should call it a show for now. If we ever want to do another episode of this, we can keep talking about politics and.
Yeah, this was good. Thanks for doing it with me.
No problem. It was actually quite good to talk about political views and stuff.
Just